Imagine you are deep in the wild in the Tanzania, surrounded by primal sounds of nature. When suddenly you come face to face with a fierce predator, it's in that moment, my friends, that you realize the true power of human potential and what it means to go beyond limits. Welcome to today's episode where we explore the extraordinary with Chris Majer. Welcome, my friend. How are you, Chris?
Oh, Carlos, I'm good, and I'm very impressed. Now. I'm like, oh boy, this sounds exciting. Who are we talking about?
I'm so looking forward to this episode, and amazing. Today's July 5th, so happy 4th of July to
Hey,
all my
hey,
Americans.
check it out. See, I still got my
Look at
official,
that.
Fourth
God
of
bless.
July shirt on.
God bless USA, baby. Let's freaking go. And I often talk about, Chris, for the same way how our founders made our declaration. I often challenge people to make your declaration, to take this time this weekend. For you guys that are listening on the replay, take the weekend and really go deep and make yourself your declaration of independence. What is that one thing that you're going to go for, that you're going to declare, and you're going to do it no matter what? So that we know long after we are no longer here, people, they're going to remember you. The same way how they remember people like Gandhi. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. The same way they remember Winston Churchill. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing ground.
Never surrender.
You know,
We will
for real.
never surrender.
The same way how they talk about Cesar Chavez, si se puede. You see,
Yeah.
all these leaders, they all had something in common. They made their declaration. Franklin Roosevelt, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Incredible people. Rosa Parks, the only thing that I wanted to be
The
remembered
list goes on and
by
on.
is freedom, and just incredible. Mandela, always seems impossible until it's done. And what a great show to celebrate, independence and to inspire others. And I'll give you one more. Steve Jobs. Here's to the crazy ones that are listening us. The misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They are not fond of rules. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them because they change things. They push the human race forward. God bless my brother Steve Jobs and all the leaders. My grandfather is also his birthday yesterday. And he used to be a policeman, military. And I know you, my friend Chris, you trained the military and pushed their limits. And we'll talk about that as well. But let's start with, and for you guys that don't know, my friend Chris Majer, he's a transformational speaker, author of The Power to Transform and the Mind Behind the Human Potential Project. It's an incredible individual, good friend of mine. We have been helping him out with a few things in the speaking side, and it's just such an honor to have you on the show today, my brother. And let's start with the bang, man. How do you identify, Chris, hidden potential within an individual or a team that even they may not recognize? Let's go deep.
Yeah. Okay. Let's not fool around here. All right, Carlos. Well, the first answer to the question is it's not so much that we identify it, because that kind of makes it sound like we have to go looking for it.
Yep.
Which we don't.
Yep.
It's already there. Our job is to let people experience and see, and then, as you said, redeclare themselves into the world. Right? You talk about declarations. The way I say it is, you need to be a stand for something. Each of those people that you mentioned stood for something. Right?
Yeah.
Martin Luther King was a stand for civil rights. Abraham Lincoln was a stand for freedom of the slaves, etc. They took the big step of making their life about their stand.
Yes.
And in the end, that's what it's all about. That's how you have a, quote, extraordinary life. And it doesn't, everybody can and should do that. But the things, people get daunted thinking, Well, I can't be a stand for the end of slavery. Well, it doesn't have to be big, right? But it has to be firm, because if you don't stand for something, as they say, you'll fall for anything.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we do is we say, okay, look, I can sit here and talk to you all day about your human potential, and you'll smile and nod, and you'll go back and do what you used to do, which isn't going to be any different. So we need to give them a taste of what's possible. So part of our work is we'll take people outside and do ropes courses. Now it sounds a little mundane, but it's not, right? Because if you get some guy who's 40, 50, 60 years old, he's been in the same kind of corporate position, and he may be in a leadership role, right? But he's so conditioned in his thinking that he doesn't really see 5 or 6 lily pads out. His idea of the future is an incremental bump on the present. So we take him and stretch his sense of possibilities. I get him to do something that minutes before he thought was impossible, right? So I'll get him 50, 60 feet up in the air, standing on a pole, diving for a trapeze. He comes back down, and if you know how to do it, you could put his life on a different course just in a split second by looking at his eyes and seeing. You can see it if you know what you're looking for. There's a moment when a door to a new future opens up, and you have to move before it closes. So I'll take some guy and I say, okay, Carlos, look at me. I know you're shaking and you're all excited and you're jacked. You should be. You got a little adrenaline rush going on here, but that's not what we're up to. Here's what I want you to think about. 10 minutes ago, you told me that you could not do this. Absolutely, positively could not do this. And now we have irrefutable evidence, not just me sweet talking you, irrefutable evidence that you not only could, but you did do it. Now, what I want you to do is look at other aspects of your life right now, in this moment, when you've got this perspective, and answer this question: where else am I telling myself that I can't do it, and that only limitation is in your mind? There is no limitation out there in the world holding you back. You've made up a story that starts with "I can't," and now you've been living that story. Let's change the story. And then all sorts of things are possible.
Yes. No, I love it. I love it. And tell me something, Chris. I often talk about, creating a lasting change effect in teams, in
Mhm.
ourselves. And what, in your opinion, why does most self-help and self-development programs they fail to deliver this lasting change?
Yeah.
Let's go deep here, because
Yeah.
it's a topic that a lot of people out there, they put courses and self-help, and you and I know, what is your take on that?
Yeah. Well, it's a very good question, and people aren't going to like the answer.
Yep. No, for real.
But
This
that
this show
doesn't
is
change
about
it.
it.
The
That's what
problem
this show is
is,
about. Is
yeah,
keeping them 100 for real.
yeah. So the answer is, we as a society have been sold a bill of goods about learning, right? So the simple axiom is, you can't learn if you don't change, and you can't change if you don't learn. But when we think of learning, our mind goes to school, and we think about, getting insights, understanding, motivation, and new information. And those are all interesting, but not it, right? So we learned a long time ago, working with athletes and soldiers, and it's kind of common sense. Learning is not about understanding. It's about building new competence, a new capacity for action, right? So what we traffic in is what we call embodied competence. You can take the new action without having to stop, think about it, look it up in a book. Okay. Now, there's only one way that you learn and develop embodied competence, and that's via practice. And the reason for that, and this is the part people don't want to understand or don't want to accept, is that while your mind understands, and your mind can, in fact, understand things in an instant, in the end, it's your body that learns. And the body only learns one way, and that's through practice. No amount of understanding ever produced new competence. Only practice does. So if you look at most self-help and self-development, all this kind of stuff, we'll go for a weekend, we'll go and watch this video, or we'll listen to this podcast, and my whole life's going to be different. No, it's not. You're going to go off and have a new idea, and you'll get excited about something, and you'll go and do what you think the guy said to do for a couple of times, and it won't work. And then you'll get discouraged. And then over time, what happens, you get this more and more and more shrunk down, tiny little version of what was once a great infinite space of possibilities, because we don't know that learning takes time. You got to build practice. So our programs unfold over months, not days. You put together coaching programs. And the simple answer here is, a quick analogy or the easiest way to understand this. So let's assume for the sake of conversation, you want to get better at golf, right? I don't know if you play golf or not, but for this conversation, you do. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're going to read Tiger Woods' book on golf and expect to get better? Well, some people do, but yeah, see, you kind of chuckle. And the other people, the common answer is no, I'm going to go to the range and practice. Great. So you already said you're not really good. So you're going to go practice at not being good. What's wrong with this picture? So the right answer is I'm going to get a coach. Now think about this. Do you actually play golf?
A little bit, not as
Okay.
much. Yeah, my back is not the
So
best, but yeah.
if I go to the range and I hire a coach, what's she going to do? She's going to say, okay, let me see you take some shots. So I'll do what I do. And she'll say, okay, here, shift your grip, roll your shoulders back, move your feet a little bit. Now think about this. What happens to those first few shots with the new changes? They're terrible, right? They go crazy. And you're thinking, well, this is no good. Well, and the reason for that, of course, they're not good to begin. It's new. It's brand new. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. You don't like it. And if the coach wasn't right there, you would do what 99% of the people do. You'd go back to doing it your old way because that felt comfortable, even though you knew it wasn't what you wanted, because it was comfortable. It was easy. The coach's job is to take you through that process of being uncomfortable. Yeah, that's fine. Hit some more. Pretty soon, over time, your shots start to get better. But it's pretty soon over time. It's not an instant thing. And it's no different with trying to make big changes in your life. If you're a leader or a manager, you've already acquired some level of competence or you wouldn't be there. Our job is to take whatever you've got and build on it. And that takes practice and that takes time. So there's a long answer to your simple question.
One thing that I love about your book is when you go deep and then we start talking about, the power of our choices, right? The choices that we make, awareness. And I want you guys, as you guys are listening here to Chris and I on the show, you guys know I'm a big student of emotional intelligence. I love talking about this topic, the mind, how the mind works, right?
Mhm.
From sales and marketing standpoint. I want you guys to pay attention to the thoughts and the meaning that you are giving to this episode in your mind. As you guys are listening to Chris and I, pay close attention to some of the thoughts that you are making, the meaning that you are giving to this conversation. Take notes from it after we are done with this episode, some of the stuff that's going on right now in your brain, because awareness and making choices, we are constantly making choices and being aware. Even some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about over here is not going to be pleasant, because this is about, you guys know me, this show is about extracting the best from my guests to make us better, for us to improve, for us to go out there. As you guys know, I love going around the world and I speak multiple languages, teaching little kids that lives in villages and giving them strategies so that they can do it. They can make their declaration, because that's the beginning. You declare, you believe in yourself. You say that you are good enough, that you are freaking awesome, and you go for it. And Chris, tell me something. What is the most piece of advice that is controversial, like the most controversial piece of advice that you gave to leaders about optimizing performance? Because I have a lot of CEOs and founders that and listen, and coaches and consultants and speakers that follow me over here in Silicon Valley and around the world.
Yeah.
And what is the big, most controversial advice that you ever gave to a leader?
You're going to love this. So, you get the same question all the time. What's your secret tip? What's the one technique you would give me? And I say, don't fall for tips and techniques. That's it.
I love it.
No, it's back to what I was just saying. It's like if I ask Tiger Woods for a golf tip, that's not going to do me any good. I'm such a crappy golfer. You know what? You got to go and develop new competence. You got to build new practices. And it's getting worse, frankly. We're looking for instant solutions for everything, because we've got this thing here which gives us instant access to everything, but it doesn't enable you to build any competence. And we've got this short attention span, which is really working against us as it comes time to develop ourselves in our lives. I mean, look, we're not talking to kids. We're talking to grown-up adults. We're not, in the realm of sports, it's like I'm working from that 85 to 100%, not 0 to 85. That part's kind of easy. It's that last little bit that takes the real work and effort and focused attention. And if you think you're going to get some little magic tip or insight, no, it's not happening. And, again, most people unfortunately don't like to hear that. They're like, no, come on, give us some magic. I said, dude, if I had a magic wand, this would be costing you a lot more. and I'd be a lot more busy.
I know. I love it. I love it, brother. And tell me something, Chris. Can you share like a story where you witnessed someone go like beyond their perceived limits to achieve something extraordinary?
Oh boy. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of examples with athletes. Let me give you one with the military.
Yeah.
Okay, so many years ago, it was back in the '80s, the height of the Cold War. A long story, but we had a year-long classified project with the Special Forces. Okay, nice mandate, push the boundaries of human performance inside our mission parameters. We don't want crazy stuff here, but inside our mission parameters. Okay, good. So when we came to work with these guys, we realized that a lot of the training they were doing wasn't quite a fit for their mission, right? This was, when Rambo was a big thing and everybody was working to look. And I said, no, that's not the body that you want. Yours is an endurance mission. So we needed to change up some of their training. And we taught them the thing that was missing in literally all military training, what we called it then mental fitness, because we had to have something that was sellable, right? And basically, just in part, what we were teaching them was some meditation techniques. And we also found this kind of mad scientist guy who enabled us to build a technology where we put all these sensors on people's heads and do brainwave entrainment. And so the Special Forces do tests that are very, very different than the rest of the military. So the test, this was our kind of first big test. I don't know how much your audience knows about the Special Forces, but they're kind of like a fire department in that they live on for X amount of time. So they're in the team house. Upstairs is where they live. Downstairs, all their gear. So they're upstairs, they're asleep. They get racked out at 2:30 in the morning. You got 10 minutes to get downstairs, get your gear on, get in the back of the truck. Go, 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 go. So out they go. Truck takes them to the airport. Here's your chute. Get on the plane. On they go. Plane takes off, flies around for a while. We're back in the wilds on the East Coast. Back of the plane opens up, 5,000 feet down there, some guy waving a flashlight. Land on him. Go, 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 go. Out they go. They get to the ground and they're handed a piece of paper. This is a Kleenex, but it was about this size. It's a map. Here's where we are. Here's where you need to be by X amount of time. If you get there in time, you get food and a new map. If you don't get there in time, you just get a new map, right? Now, we're up in the mountains here in Pennsylvania. So no team had gotten past 3 legs of this test, right? Our guys got to 5 legs and they had to call off the test because they didn't have any more maps. Nobody had ever gotten this far. It didn't occur to them that they would need more than that. So bada bing, bada boom. It was all about the unity of mind, body, and spirit. And when we say spirit, we of course don't mean religion, but your human spirit, right? What are you up to here? Back to what's your declaration about who you're going to be here? And where the teams invariably broke down was mostly in the realm of spirit. They'd lose focus. They'd get, as a result of being fatigued and not having proper nutrition, their mood would deteriorate, leadership would break down, and they just kind of collapse after about 3 legs. So we took them to 5. They couldn't go any farther because there was no more maps.
Wow, I love it. I love it. Now, yeah, I had my fair share in the Marines in Brazil.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of friends in the American military. Now, that's awesome. And Chris, what inspired you, my brother, to dedicate your career to individuals and organizations to unleash their full potential? I often talk about our why and the things that inspires. Where did that came from?
Oh boy. Well, mine's a different story, Carlos. I can't say that I was uniquely inspired per se, as much as I had my, well, for want of a better word, my mystical awakening experience one day, right? The kind of stuff you think is only fictional.
Yeah.
But how's this for weird? So I don't know about you, but when I was in my 20s, I had this kind of lingering sense that I was supposed to be up to something with my life that I currently wasn't doing, right? I didn't know what it was. I just knew that whatever it was I was doing now wasn't it. Right. So I was a rugby player, played, first division for a number of years. Every year there's this big tournament down in Monterey, California. So we're in Seattle. Fine, let's go. We're at the airport. I get to the airport and I go, oh, crap. The book that I was reading, which I have no idea what that was, I'd left on the bedside table, so I don't have anything to do on the plane. Yeah, I'm not the kind of guy that can stare out the window for 3 hours or look at the magazine, 10 times. So what do? Well, this is no mystery. I go to the bookstore. How hard is that to figure out, right? So believe it or not, I have a mystical experience in the airport bookstore at SeaTac Airport. Not the kind of place you would think of for this.
For real.
Not the spot that comes first to mind. So I'm sitting there looking at the wall of books. We've all been there. There's the science fiction and the thrillers and the history and the bodice rippers and whatnot. And believe it or not, this book starts talking to me. I know this sounds bizarre, right? And I'm not talking like an audio book. It's like this book is talking to me, like, "Hey, come here. You want to get me?" And I'm literally looking around, like, "What the hell?" Because it's talking in my head. Okay. So I go up, and it's like the very back top corner of the bookstore, right? So I pull this book down. It's called "The Ultimate Athlete" by some guy I'd never heard of, George Leonard. I thought, well, okay. I'm an athlete. I'll read this. Maybe I'll pick up some pointers for the tournament, blah, 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 get in the plane. I didn't put it down till we landed, and I was left with, wow, I don't have any idea about half the stuff this guy was talking about. He's talking about synchronicity and intentionality and some Asian energy called ki and some Japanese martial art called Aikido that I'd never heard of. But I said, I don't know what this is about, but I like it. It resonated with me. Right now, I'd like to tell you, from that moment in time, my life was different, but no, it wasn't. I kind of filed that away, but pretty soon I just, it kept, oh yeah, what about that? What are you going to do about it? What about that? So I thought, well, okay, it's about time. I was about 30 now. It's time to grow up. I can't keep playing rugby. My body won't take it. And I might want to figure out a little more serious work in terms of my career. So I thought, well, what do I remember about that book? Yeah, there's some martial arts. I went and checked out some different martial arts, right? So I looked at a karate class and I said, well, that's just kind of stylized beating people up. I played rugby for 12 years. I know how to beat people up. And I looked at Bruce Lee was in Seattle at the time. So I went to one of these guys, oh, he's pretty cool, but man, his body's very different than mine. I just don't see that. So then I remember this Aikido class. So I went and took Aikido. I met a guy there who was a sports psychologist, and I was fascinated by him because he had sciencey sounding explanations for what I considered too many bangs on the head or flashbacks to the 60s or something. And he and I got to be buddies, and we were just young enough and naive enough to not know any better. So we started a business called Sports Mind, 1981, 82 in Seattle. And Carlos, I don't know, you've probably had this experience. All I can say is Providence was shaping things, right? For no accountable reason. We put together a body of work, mind, body, spirit stuff, but with then contemporary technology. Did great work with individual athletes. We had a little problem in that this was before Nike and Adidas existed the way they do now. So our clients were making extraordinary performance improvements, but they were all broke. Doing great work, not getting paid. Flaw in the business plan, right?
Yep.
So
Big time.
our attention to teams, saw the same thing everybody's seeing. You could take a group of players who as individuals were great, put them together on a team, and the team would stink. We go, oh, that doesn't make any sense, but it happens so much, and not just in sports. So we built a body of work called Team Cohesion, and next thing I know, we're working with the Seattle Seahawks, some U.S. Olympic teams, some national teams, and out of the blue, a long, intricate story of the universe kind of kicking me in the butt every now and then. As I tell people, luck is what happens when the universe gets tired of waiting for you to get it, right? So,
amen.
So I found myself in front of a room full of colonels in scenic Fort Hood, Texas. Not part of my big plan, and we ended up with a sole source contract with United States Army, 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, seemingly impossible. We took, they gave us the worst unit on base. We took them from worst to second in 90 days. And then we had a whole bunch of what I call Harry Met Sally experiences. I'll have what they're having. So we worked through a bunch of things. And then I'm sitting in my office one day and get a phone call. Mr. Majer, this is, Sergeant Schmedlap. Colonel Potter would like to speak with you. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, Colonel Potter, that's that guy on MASH. So I thought it was one of my goofy rugby playing buddies. So I hung up on him. Yeah, that wasn't good. So the phone rang a few minutes later. Sergeant Schmedlap now has a different tone of voice. Right? Now, Mr. Majer, Colonel William Potter of the 10th Special Forces Group would like to speak with you, sir, and doesn't really appreciate being hung up on.
Like, oh shit.
Yeah, exactly. Ruh-roh. So I start talking to the colonel, great, and he lays down the gauntlet. I read about stuff you did with these regular soldiers. What do you think you could do with some real guys? Like, oh, it's on. The gauntlet's down. He flew us out to Fort Devens, and I had one of the great experiences, both good and bad, of my life. So Fort Devens is outside of Worcester, Massachusetts. I think it's gone now. Yep. But so I landed at Logan Airport, and this was in the days when people could meet you at the gate. I am met by 6 Special Forces operators, and those guys. They're nothing on, no ID. They got a green beret and a rank and a name. That's it. And I'm not a little guy. I'm 6'4", 220, right? These are some big guys. So we're walking through the airport. You should have seen the way people are looking at us. They're like, oh, they finally got that terrorist. And if you will recall, the terrorist everybody was scared of in those days, his name was Carlos. They finally got that terrorist, Carlos. We get the baggage claim. Everybody moves. I could get used to this, right? So we get out there. I'm talking to the colonel. He wants me to brief all his commanders. Now, he didn't tell me that this was coming up. So, okay, it's Friday afternoon, dude. It's 4:00. I'm in the way of them and their weekend? Seriously? So imagine this, if you can. We go in. He introduces me to these guys. Me and my partner, Bud, introduces us. And he says, these guys, I want them to talk to you. They're going to tell you some stuff. We got a couple ideas that I want you to hear. I'm not going to stay here because I don't want to bias the conversation, but listen to them, take them apart, and I'll come back in about an hour. And he walks off. And I'm thinking, can we clarify that take them apart thing just, a little bit? So you're a speaker. This is every speaker's nightmare. So I talk for 30 minutes. Not one of these guys moved a facial muscle. I'm going, God, if I didn't see them breathing, I'd think they were all mannequins. So Bud has the same luck, and we get done. We look at each other and we go, well, nice knowing you, because it comes to the tear them apart part. And so we asked if they had any questions. They went nuts. Oh, that's cool. We're like, what? Oh, didn't they tell you that's the way we do briefings here? We're not. That would have been good to know in advance. Thank you. So the short of this is we ended up with this year-long classified project with the Special Forces. And I told you about the incident, the test, et cetera, et cetera. 3 months to get ready, 6 months. We had 2 A teams under our operational control, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was extraordinary. Now, I'm going to stop here because this is a very long-winded answer to your question of what got me into this. It was an evolutionary, incremental process. I didn't go, I'm going to set about being a great transformational leader. That wasn't how it worked. I kind of backed into this, but kept going. And along the way, people come and go and they drop off. But I just kind of kept going. My curiosity, I explored lots of different teachers. I worked with all kinds of different methodologies. I played with some different martial arts. I did 6 or 7, 8 kinds of meditation just to see it was different. Worked with energy healing practices and learning linguistic competencies and begin to then see, I don't know how, but I can see connections between and amongst all this stuff that other people can't. I don't know why. And built a body of work. It kept evolving. After the military, I said to my guys, the work that we did with the athletes and soldiers was extraordinary and was very useful because we're working in 2 arenas where performance matters and where you can measure it, right? I don't want to keep training soldiers my whole life. That work, doing it is extraordinary. The process of getting to do it, the government contracting process, I don't want to have to hire 5 people to keep track of all this stuff. So we're going to turn our attention to business. Now, remember when I said Providence was looking at us? So catch this. So they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, look, it's a different kind of challenge. It's going to be harder than what we've been doing. And then they all gave me that, oh, it's not physically harder, morons. Think about it. On any given, it's business. There's no timeout. There's no spring training. There's no off season. The game's going all the time. And on any given team, there's a vast gap in the level of competence and commitment on the part of the players. How do we work inside of that? So I'm going to put together a business plan. I'm going to go raise money. There was this young kid coming up named Tony Robbins and another guy named Werner Earhart. And I said, I don't want my name on it. I want it to be about what we do, not me. Right? If it's about me, then we just got a glorified mom and pop business. Right?
Yeah.
So I put together a business plan, and everybody's like, you don't know anything about business plans. What do you need? I said, I love your confidence, guys. So now you have to remember, this is the early 80s. There's no angel network. None of the startup infrastructure that exists today existed in those days. So some of my business contacts said, well, here, good luck. It's a service business. Nobody's going to understand it. It's kind of touchy-feely, woo-woo-y was the phrase in those days. So knock yourself out. Carlos, remember the blessing part? The very first guy I talked to, no shit, the very first guy says, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. Wrote me a check for $450,000 in 1984.
That's a nice check, back in those days.
But the real downside for me was I was left with, well, what's so hard about this? What's the big deal? What's so hard about raising money? If only. So again, I got a kick in the butt. We built a corporate program. We needed someplace to test it. The guy who was the check writer's partner owned a manufacturing company over in Shelton, Washington. I don't know if you could find Shelton on the map. It's as far away as you could get from the business mainstream in this country. You go 60 miles west from there and you're in the Pacific Ocean. Yeah. So this was a little company. They took massive ingots of aluminum and with milling machines turned them into doors for Boeing airplanes. 300-person shop. We took them in groups of 100 through this 3-day process. The managers were all like, well, okay, I mean, we'll experiment, but you're really not going to be able to do much because according to all our models, the production's maxed out. We can't really produce anymore. 6 weeks later, production's up 20%.
Wow.
They were astounded. Now, Carlos, I went from there. My second client was AT&T. Yeah. I went from nowhere to center ring in the circus. I went from 5 guys in a cubby hole in Pioneer Square in Seattle to 85 guys in 6 months. And as I tell people, I did it and made pretty much every stupid mistake you can make along the way. And the business succeeded oftentimes despite my best efforts. So
yes, no, man, I love it. I had my fair share with AT&T in the early 2000s in their broadband cable division. I had to train criminals. Look at how my mind would work. I was like, I want stuff that is hard and difficult. So I went after criminals that were leaving prison, ex-gangsters, to help them become civilians and go sell cable door to door. And when the modem first came out, transition from the CD, the dial-up, why do I want to have this black box and pay $3 for it? Like, trust me, you will like it to help you with your Yahoo email and watch your videos. And man. And we had a fair share. We would go to areas like to the hood, to the barrios, to places where nobody was willing to go. So I think I'm going to train the people from those areas and show them, like, you want to make some really good money? Here, these are some areas that are under their virgin areas. The penetration of products and services were not there.
No, not there at all.
People was afraid to go and promote. And you guys listening to us now, think about what is in one area or maybe in one angle that you can use in your life, in your business, that you can go and promote yourself. That maybe if you look at the top 10 people that you are competing against, maybe they're not focusing there. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's an under-penetrated area. And that's some of the things that I used to do with corporations. We'll look at, all right, let's take a look at the penetration of the products and services. Is that a place, an area that maybe the competition is not going there? Why don't we go there? Mm-hmm. Let's go to places where, since we're talking about going beyond limits, let's get creative. Like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna recruit gangsters, and I'm gonna hope they don't shoot me because I'm 6'5", 300 pounds. I'm always dressing in black. They always thought I was some type of cop, detective. They would patch me for wires in the block all the time. But it's about
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
this
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And I love this stuff, man. I love if like going against the crowd. I often tell people going against the norm, and I had my fair share in going, beyond the limits. Chris, I don't know if I ever told you there's a story where my daughter was born with a condition that it wasn't a cure for it. It's called methylation, MTHFR. And doctors, they're not trained to identify those things. So what that did, since she was born, within 6 months, she started waking up, crying and screaming throughout the night, every couple of minutes for years. And we spent just so much money, went through so many doctors, couldn't figure it out, man, to the point where it created a huge toll on my wife and myself. My wife wasn't sleeping, I wasn't sleeping, but me, I always, even though I have all this training in military personal development, man, the training never stopped. It took a huge toll on her, a huge toll. It was pretty bad, man. And to the point where, just you don't wish that you're your worst nightmare. You know what I mean? Not sleeping. You and I know from military, that's what they do with inmates. They torture them. They don't let them sleep to take information, and goes way deep and stuff. But I couldn't get any subjects to go test on, let me go talk to some people. I called some military friends, do you have anything on Guantanamo Bay, maybe? Any case studies? What goes on people's mind when they don't sleep, But it got so bad, Chris, that I had to quit my job at corporate America, and I dedicated myself, since no doctors, no therapy, no nothing could fix it. And I just told my wife, I have the rest of my life to make money, but I don't have the rest of my life to save your life.
Yeah.
And what I did, Chris, I studied how to amplify my mind, my intelligence, to be able to learn how to become a doctor, a coach, a therapist. I became certified master in Qigong, learning energy, different healing modalities, understanding different types of modalities with Rife machines and energy, and so much stuff. And to show that the human, anybody listening to us here, if a doctor come to you and say that it's not a cure for something, or somebody say this is not possible, it's just, I want you guys to believe in yourself. Because when you tell yourself and you make a declaration that, I'm going to save my daughter and my wife, and I'm going to figure this out, I'll do whatever it takes. I wanted you guys to know that it's possible. Look at Chris's stories. It's possible. You just have to make the declaration and believe in yourself. And can you tell me about a time in your life, Chris, where a transformational moment in your own life where you surpass your own limits, right? Because that was one of my I figure people were like, how can you do it? How did you do it? How did you learn how to become a doctor, coach, a therapist, and this and this and that within a year? To save your family, to figure it out, to go deep into this shit. And I say
suitable motivation. Well,
for real.
Okay, let me tell you something. So, in fact, let's go with the one that you set up at the very beginning. Okay, so after many years of doing this kind of high-level transformational work, right, I had a cadre of people that I worked with in other companies and whatnot, and there's like 10 of us guys, right? And we thought, we need to do something, because one of the things I tell people is you always got to be willing to take that one more step. Wherever you think your limit is, get to there and take one more step. And our other fundamental belief is we can't tell people or teach people to do stuff that we're not willing to do or haven't done ourselves.
Amen.
So where's the boundary? Where's our edge? And what we came up with was we were going to go to Africa and find some place in the wild that no human beings had been, or that we couldn't find any trace that human beings had been. We were going to go there, right? So we found these guys. They were like the Cartwrights of Africa, 3 brothers who lived in a compound, and they were hunting guides, right? And we explained to them that we want to go in the wild. We don't want to hunt. We don't want to kill things, but we want to get out and be immersed in the wild and the animals and all that kind of stuff. Okay, great. So where we were was in Tanzania, right? Where it's in the dry season. So there's no, quote, jungle, because in the wet, so you can't see anything, right? So we're in the dry season. We didn't really think this all the way through, frankly. so we spent a week just kind of getting used to being in the country before we went and hiked for goddamn 10 days up and down the Maasai with a Maasai chief. And you should have seen us, man. We all came loaded up. We looked like a poster childs for REI, right? And then after about 5 days, there's just this trail of discarded gear behind us. The locals loved it. Oh, here, yeah, you can have that. Yeah, you can have that. So we get down to the kickoff point, and the last bit of this was the 10 days in the wild. So we get out there in these Land Rovers. The government has sent a game warden with us, and we're kind of thinking, well, we're not hunting. What do we need a game warden for? And he explains, oh, no, it's not about you. It's about me. There's poachers out here. So I figure if I'm with you guys, they won't kill me. Oh, okay. What could go wrong here? Right. So then they explain, just to be clear, once these Land Rovers leave, there's no way out of here except you got to get to the other end, because that's where they're going to pick us up in 10 days. So if anybody gets seriously hurt here, yeah, you're probably toast, because we didn't have satellite phones in those days, because we don't have any way to get you out of here. Okay, great. So at this point, of course, nobody's going to go, oh, I changed my mind. So fine, off we go. Well, two things happened. One, as I said, it was the dry season, and two, there were poachers in the area, and they had set fire to everything before we got there, like a couple days earlier. So what looked good from the air when we scouted it, now it's like, holy crap, there's just 2 inches of ash. It's 85 to 100 degrees out, and we're getting eaten alive by tsetse flies, who it turns out like the smell of DEET. All right, so bug repellent, they loved it. So, okay, this is good. So we walk for a couple days, and by the end of the day, you're covered with ash. We're in a bad mood. It's hot. It's nasty. We get up, and we're on, I think, about like day 3. And the way that we worked was we'd walk in silence because we wanted to not scare things, right? And my mind is just going, oh, for the love of God, what have you gotten yourself into? Like, here's how smart I am. I've paid to go on the Bataan Death March. So kind of lost in that thought. Now, the sub story here is one of the things that we teach people is a centering practice. Like, get present in the moment. Don't let your emotions carry you away. Get present. You know this from your martial arts and stuff. That's the same thing. Okay. So we come around the bend where we're walking up the bank of this. I use the term river loosely because the dry season, wide riverbed, little stream going down the middle. So we come around, there's this little pool there, and all of a sudden we've surprised a pride of lions who are drinking at the river. Now, that's bad enough. Where it gets worse fast is there was the cubs and the grown-ups. The cubs went one way, the grown-ups went the other. So now we're right in the spot you do not want to be, which is between the mama and daddy lions and the babies, right?
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So you've been to the circus or the zoo. You've seen lions. They're big. They're impressive. You probably heard them roar, right? Well, when they're about 20 yards away, making feigned charges at you, and there's no bars and none of that stuff, and they're roaring, and it's personal, I'm talking to you, right? I don't know how to describe this. It vibrates your biology in a way that I had never experienced before. Now, some people would panic. A couple of our guys got a little freaky because we didn't have guns, right? And what I noticed was, I don't even know how to explain this, Carlos. It was like all of a sudden some deeper connection to this whole phenomenon being centered. I was so present in the moment, but at the same time, I don't want to call it time traveling, but there was some biological deep DNA memory got triggered. Like, oh yeah, I remember this.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of years of evolution, whatnot. Oh yeah, I remember this. It's like it all came back, and I just got totally calm. And it was this one pristine moment of really, really being absolutely present in the moment that I had not experienced before. It was absolutely extraordinary. So we said, okay, everybody be cool. Everybody's got their pack out in front of them in case the lions do charge. Let's move towards the river, and we'll give them room to get back together, right? So we move towards the river. Oh, no. Now we're on the hippos territory, and he's pissed. And if people don't know this, hippos are more dangerous than lions.
A lot of people die every year because of hippos. Yeah.
So now Mr. Hippo comes charging out of the river. Now we're really going, oh, fuck. So there's this little pathway up there. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, bloody hell, 3 minutes ago, I'm bored out of my mind. Now I'm in the middle of an Indiana Jones movie.
Which way do you go?
Yeah,
Lions or hippo?
lions, hippos,
Gotta
where's
make
the
the
lava?
choice.
Where's the lava? So we get up the riverbank and get away from all of that. And took a little time out, and everybody's kind of looking around going, pardon my French, holy fuck. That was some intense living. And go, yeah, let's do that again. It was all
Wow.
cool. Nobody died, so we're good. Yeah.
For real, man. Talking about engaging all our senses and
Yeah.
being present. And that's how we gotta, I always talk about, man, the training never stops. We
Yeah.
gotta constantly train ourselves. What is our worst fears, right? What is the thing, what I mean? It's like when shit hits the fan, and it's crazy. Can you tell me about a time where you had to confront, a leader about their toxic behavior? And how did that conversation go, Chris? Let's talk about it, because as you and I know, that happens a lot, in corporate America, but a lot of people, they don't like, to push, the boundaries. A lot of consultants out there, they don't like to really call the CEOs and call them out on their bullshit, because it happens to all of us, right? We all have blind spots. If we are going to keep it 100, sometimes, it's like nobody's perfect, but it gets to a point where we got to identify our flaws if we really want something to change and the company to grow, or deal with that difficult employee, or even at home dealing with a difficult spouse or somebody in your own family, right? So can you tell me about, have you ever had to
got a few
confront?
of those?
Yeah, I figure you have. That's why I was like, I figure it would be a great.
I'll tell you the one was the most challenging, Carlos, because he was a friend of mine.
Yeah.
So when I quote retired from playing rugby, the guy who came behind me. Now, like I said, I'm a big guy, but he's 6'7", played for the U.S. national team, big guy. Started his own company, force of will, but he had a explosive temper, let's say that, right? And when he got going, he would rant, and he'd be abusive and yelling and the whole thing that you don't like. And all of his people kind of lived somewhere in terror of him. But after he'd have one of these episodes, he'd be really embarrassed and he'd do stuff to make it up. But it just kept happening, and people were finally getting tired of it. So I had to have the talk with him, look, bud, the reason your company is not growing very much is not because of them, and it's not because you don't have systems and processes. It's because of you. Boom. And, he's like, I won't quote him, but you can imagine the reaction. I said, well, let me lay it out for you. You do this, you act like this. And well, what this led to, believe it or not, was I got him to appoint somebody else. And of all the people, you would never have guessed, a young woman to be the CEO of the company and for him to step aside. Wow. And it was not a graceful exit. It took some time, but eventually we engineered a deal where she bought him out. All right. He's now happy, retired. We get together every couple of weeks for dinner. She's taken, the company from 50 to 60 to 80 to 100 mil a year in a few short years, because she took away that gray cloud of fear and intimidation and, all that tough guy stuff, just now, don't get me wrong. She's not a pansy, but goes about it in a completely different way.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's
but those are tough conversations.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it because, there's a lot of people out there right now, some of you guys listening to us here, that probably have to have that tough conversation.
Yeah.
It starts with ourselves, like we've been talking about, of identifying, even like as I pre-framed you guys earlier, thinking about what is going on through your minds right now, thinking about, your awareness to this conversation. How present are you here right now with Chris and I? Think about the meanings that you are giving to the things that Chris is responding, and how would you answer some of the questions. As you guys know, man, this show is all about, we appreciate all of you guys here, your support. As you guys know, this show is free. It's about bringing amazing people like Chris and then many other incredible CEOs and influenced celebrities and athletes that we had in the show. We had some few great interviews coming up as well. With some
not as great as this one. Now that's
man, this over here, this is like hippos and lions and dealing with the crap that nobody wants to talk about. And I love that, Chris. It's just keeping that 100. And Chris, can you elaborate the concept? You talk about this in your book of embodied competence. Can you elaborate a little bit about that and something that somebody can apply right now in their business if they
Well,
feel stuck and they want
yeah,
to take things to another level?
right. But I will, but I need to caution that you need to be careful with that apply right now.
Hmm.
Because again, that's fallen for the, oh, I heard about it, so I can do it. No, you
Yeah.
can't. All
It's
right.
not the
So
TikTok, right? The instant. It's not gonna be the
exactly.
instant fix.
No, no, no,
Yes.
no.
I
Don't
love
go
it that you pre-frame that. It's the ongoing. Yes.
Yes. So embodied competence simply is, as I said earlier, it's simply the process by which you develop competence. Right now, everybody thinks of learning as a curve. It doesn't work that way. It's a stair step, and it's very frustrating because you start as a beginner. And the reason most adults don't ever learn anything is they're not willing to be beginners. Right?
Yes.
Because a beginner is a person who makes all three of these declarations. I see there's some domain in which I'm not competent, but I'm committed to learn. Right. So we tend to think that you should be embarrassed by not knowing something. No. How would that, there's so much to know. Nobody can know everything,
Yeah.
despite the way some of us pretend all the time.
Yeah.
So I got to say that I'm willing to learn. Two, I'm going to get a coach. I'm going to get somebody who can develop my competence. I don't fall for the old, I'll teach myself. That's just, it doesn't happen that way. And three, and this is the tough part, I'm going to be comfortable with being a beginner. Now, what does that mean? Look, think of it in sports. If I'm a beginning tennis player, my serve looks more like a baseball shot. It's up and over the 400-foot fence, right? I can do things with the golf ball that physicists say are impossible. Wow, look at that. He made a 90-degree turn with a round object. You've got to get used to being awkward, uncomfortable, making the silly mistakes. And if you can't do that, you're never going to learn. But if you keep at it, you progress up from beginner, right? Competent, virtuoso, master, et cetera, et cetera. And that takes time. So the critical thing is the real leaders are committed to learning all the time. They're always developing new competence.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
man. And it's so true. It's like I often talk, as you and I know, you've been going through the speaking program, and I always talk to people. It's like, show me your calendar. How many speaking abstracts, how many applications did you submit this week? It's like I tell people, be careful what you wish for, because if you do the work and you follow the strategies, then you're going to be like myself. You're going to be speaking every month, multiple times. But again, it's like a process, right? You got to apply it, and you got to apply it every week. You send 5 to 10 applications to the sources that we are giving you, that we are pointing you towards to, and then you do it and you make it a part of your daily life. It's something that you do it no matter what, every week. The goal, send 5 to 10 applications for you to potentially speak at an industry event, at a corporate event. But and then a lot of people, I put it on my calendar. I've been there, and then it's the alarm comes off. Oh, but I'm in the middle of something. Oh, but this come out and this come out. You cannot. You gotta do it. Embody.
You gotta do it.
Like even when you don't feel like it, because I promise anybody, and as you're experiencing, Chris, when you do the work, and if you do 5, even at 5 a week, that's 20 applications a month, 240 applications for you to speak. Don't you tell me? Imagine if you only get like 5% out of 240. That's 12.
That's 12. That's plenty.
12. It's once a month. Plenty stages for you to speak in front of CEOs and CMOs and athletes, or whatever is that niche that you want to focus on, and that can change your lives, because stages builds authority. It builds credibility. You know what I mean? It puts you in front of the map where you can share your powerful story with all your methodologies and your principles. They are incredible. And speaking of that, Chris, since we're getting towards the end over here, what are you working on right now? Some exciting. What is ahead?
Okay. Well, good question. Yes, I actually need to bop here pretty quick. So what we're working on is we've got all this live work that we've been doing for years. I'm working on turning it into, I've already got the first generation of an app done, right? And now with all this new AI that's coming out, I'm going, I think there's a lot of ways we can make and spice this up a little bit more. So that's kind of my challenge right now, that and kind of rebuilding up our marketing and outreach efforts. So it's an engaging process. Let's just say that.
And Chris, where can they learn more about you? Where do you hang around online the most? Where people can follow you, they can reach out to you? What is the best place?
Well, you can catch some. We've got a little series of videos that tell our history and story, and those are pretty much on all the social media sites at, Human Potential Project. So just go there, humanpotentialproject.com, chrismajer.com. So if you just go to Chris Majer or Human Potential Project on any of the social media stuff, we're there, right? And of course, you can get copies of my book on Amazon, The Power to Transform.
I highly recommend, by the way, man. Not just because we're doing things together. It's just incredible book. It's love. I love taking notes after every time that I listen, and I listen to the entire thing, and it's just incredible, incredible book. And Chris, and this leaves us to the last question on the show. Is a question that I ask every guest. It's 50 years from now, you are 100 years old, and is your eulogy. All your friends are gonna be there. We're gonna be smoking cigars, drinking some scotch or wine or whatever they like, a tea, a glass of water, and they're gonna be playing some AC/DC, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, whatever you like to listen. And your best friend, your loved one, is gonna read your eulogy, and they're gonna say, Chris Majer was ... Who was Chris Majer in your own words?
Well, brother. Well, let's be clear, Carlos. 50 years from now, I will likely have been dead for about 20 because I'm already 70. So,
man, are you doing great?
Having a memorial service. Yeah.
You're doing amazing, my brother, for 70. Wow. Congrats on that.
I think I would just sum it up as, it's like if my daughter were to get up and talk about her father, all she would say is, my father lived a most extraordinary life. And leave it at that.
I love it. Wow. That's amazing, my friend. I appreciate you, Chris Majer. What an incredible time over here we spent together, my friend. Want to take to the graves, as I did with many other incredible episodes. And I was really looking forward to this date. And I'm just incredible, my friend. Didn't expect any less from you, brother. Playing full out. And I hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you did, heart it up, like it, follow us. We are everywhere. If you're listening to us on Apple, go on Spotify, drop a like and follow that as well. Go on iHeartRadio, follow that as well. Go on YouTube and follow us everywhere. We are everywhere, my friends. And follow us on social media. Carlos Inspire on TikTok, on Instagram, Carlos Siqueira on LinkedIn. Go ahead and follow my brother here from another mother, Chris Majer. He's on LinkedIn, everywhere, chrismajer.com, humanpotentialproject.com, and check it out, The Power of Transform. Appreciate you all. Have a blessed day.
Thanks to all of your friends out there.
Yes, sir. And you guys know the drill. Life is all about the mission, never the commission. And when you feel out giving up, you remind yourself that the day that breaks us are truly the days that makes us. Let's freaking go.
All right, man.